I, 38M, caught my wife and her affair partner celebrating their anniversary with my money. I froze our accounts and left her with nothing. I'm 38, a software engineer with a solid career, and I thought I had built a decent life. I wasn't flashy, but I worked hard, provided well, and had a comfortable home with my wife of 10 years. We didn't have kids, but we had a life together, or so I thought. That illusion shattered a few months ago. I've always handled the finances in our marriage. Not because I'm controlling, but because my wife has never been great with money. She was the free spirit who loved shopping, spa days, and overpriced brunches with her friends, while I was the one who made sure the bills got paid. I never thought much of it, until I discovered where my money was really going. It started with a gut feeling. You know, that nagging voice in the back of your head telling you something is off? My wife had been acting strange, guarding her phone, giggling at texts, and dressing up more than usual. I brushed it off at first. Maybe she just wanted to feel good about herself. But then I noticed the credit card statements. Strange hotel charges. High-end restaurant bills at places I'd never been to. Jewelry I never saw her wear. The kicker? A $500 charge at a luxury hotel on a weekend. She told me she was visiting her sister. I'm not a fool. I knew what this looked like. But before I confronted her, I needed proof. So, I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I dug deeper. I logged into our shared bank account and tracked her spending. The pattern was clear. This wasn't just a fling. This was a full-blown relationship. She was spending our money on him. I had to know who he was. So, I checked her messages when she was in the shower. And there it was, her sweetheart, Herb Love. The text made me sick. She was planning a weekend getaway with him. Not just any weekend, an anniversary trip. Their 1-year anniversary. I sat there numb. My wife, the woman I had devoted my life to, was celebrating a milestone with another man, using my hard-earned money. That's when I decided. If she wanted to live off me while parading around with another guy, she was about to learn a very painful lesson. I wasn't going to confront her yet. No, that would be too easy. I needed a plan. The first thing I did was freeze our shared accounts. Every joint card, every bank account with both our names on it locked. Then I transferred my direct deposits into a separate account under my name only. She had always relied on me for financial security. Now, she'd have none. But that wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel this. So, I waited. I let her think everything was normal. Until the day of their anniversary. I knew where they were going, a fancy restaurant in the city. So, I made sure she'd get the shock of her life. I booked a table for myself at the same restaurant. But I wasn't alone. I brought along her parents. Her conservative, traditional parents who believed in loyalty and commitment. The kind of people who thought their daughter was in a happy marriage with a faithful husband. When we arrived, I spotted them immediately. My wife, all dressed up, laughing with him. Some guy who looked like he thought he was God's gift to women. I waited until their entrees arrived before making my move. I stood up, walked over, and just stood there, watching, letting the realization dawn on her face. She went pale. He looked confused. And her parents? They looked horrified. "Happy anniversary," I said. Her mother gasped. Her father's face turned red. My wife? She just stammered, trying to come up with a lie that would fix this. There was no fixing this. Her affair partner, let's call him AP, finally spoke. "Who the hell are you?" I smiled. "I'm her husband." Silence. Absolute, deafening silence. Her father turned to her, voice shaking with rage. "Is this true?" She couldn't even answer. She just sat there, mouth opening and closing like a fish. I turned to AP. "So, how does it feel knowing she was spending my money on you? That all those romantic trips and dinners? I paid for them." His smirk vanished. And then I delivered the final blow. "Oh, by the way, sweetheart, I froze our accounts. That Chanel bag you wanted? You can forget it. The weekend getaway you were planning? Canceled. Your credit card? Declined." Her face contorted in horror. "You? I what?" I interrupted. "Cut you off? Left you with nothing? Funny, that's exactly what you've been doing to me for the past year." Her father looked at her like he didn't even recognize his own daughter. Her mother was already crying. And AP? He looked ready to bolt. But I wasn't done yet. I turned to him. "Oh, And by the way, you might want to get checked. His eyes widened. What the hell does that mean? I shrugged. Well, if she was cheating on me with you, who's to say she wasn't cheating on you with someone else? And just like that, the smug bastard panicked. He turned to her furious. Wait, what the hell? You told me you were divorced. She finally found her voice. Baby, He shoved his chair back. Oh, hell no. Then he threw some cash on the table and walked out. Just left her sitting there, humiliated, as her parents stared at her in disgust. I leaned in close. Good luck finding a new place to live. The locks are changed. Her eyes widened in horror. You. Oh, and one last thing, I said, my voice cold. I filed for divorce. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. And with that, I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving her with nothing but the consequences of her actions. Her parents followed me. They apologized profusely, but I just shook my head. It wasn't their fault. She made her choices. Now she'd have to live with them. I didn't look back. And you know what? I've never felt lighter. As I walked out of that restaurant, I felt an unfamiliar sense of peace. For months, I had been living in the dark, unknowingly funding my wife's secret life. But now, the weight was gone. She was exposed, humiliated, and best of all, cut off. But I wasn't done yet. I had no interest in dragging this out, but I also wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. I had already spoken to my lawyer before that night, and he assured me that given the circumstances, I had the upper hand. Texas, where we lived, was a community property state. That meant that without a prenup, assets were typically split 50-50ths. But adultery changes things. In Texas, proof of infidelity can sway divorce settlements, especially when financial misconduct is involved. And since she used our money to fund her affair, I had grounds for a fault-based divorce, which could leave her with significantly less than half. And guess what? I had receipts. When I got home that night, I slept like a baby. But my phone? That was another story. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, all from her. Wife, we need to talk. Wife, please don't do this. Wife, I made a mistake, but you can't just leave me with nothing. Oh, but I could. And I did. I didn't respond. Instead, I met with my lawyer the next morning, handed him everything, bank statements, hotel receipts, even screenshots of her texts with her affair partner. He smiled. She's screwed. Music to my ears. But my lawyer wasn't the only one she had to deal with. Her parents were furious. After I left the restaurant, her father had gone nuclear. He wasn't just disappointed, he was ashamed. In their eyes, she had embarrassed their family, humiliated me, and made a fool of herself. And the best part? They weren't going to bail her out. Her father had cut off her financial support. She had a small inheritance that he managed for her. Her mother refused to even speak to her. So now, with her sugar daddy gone, no access to our accounts, and her own parents turning their backs on her, she was scrambling. She showed up at my office 2 days later. Security called me, saying there was a distressed woman in the lobby demanding to see me. I already knew who it was. I went down there, not because I wanted to talk, but because I wanted her out of my life as fast as possible. She looked like a wreck, mascara smudged, hair a mess, and a mix of anger and desperation in her eyes. You can't do this to me, she hissed the second she saw me. I folded my arms. Do what? Hold you accountable. She clenched her jaw. I made a mistake, okay? But you can't just cut me off like this. I have nothing. I raised an eyebrow. Sounds like a you problem. She lost it. She went on a full-blown rant, saying I was being vindictive, that I owed her, that she had given me the best years of her life. I owed her? I laughed. You gave me the best years of your life? Really? Because from where I'm standing, you were busy giving them to someone else. She flinched. Then she tried switching tactics. Tears, apologies, begging. I was confused. He meant nothing to me. I just wanted to feel wanted. I wasn't buying it. I'm not your backup plan, I said coldly. I'm not your safety net. You made your choice. Now live with it. Then I turned and walked away. She screamed after me, causing a scene, but I didn't care. Security escorted her out, and that was the last time I saw her face in person. The divorce moved quickly. Thanks to the proof of her affair and financial misconduct, the judge ruled heavily in my favor. She got no alimony, She got no part of my retirement savings. She got no claim to my house. I had bought it before the marriage, and she had zero contributions to the mortgage. She was legally ordered to pay back a portion of the money she had spent on her affair, since she used marital funds for an extramarital relationship. She had expected a cushy divorce settlement. Instead, she walked away with barely anything. And the cherry on top? She lost her job. Turns out, she had been calling in sick for her affair meetups one too many times, and HR had caught on. They fired her for job abandonment. So, to sum it up, no husband, no affair partner, no money, no house, no job. She had nothing. And me? I was finally free. It's been months since the divorce was finalized. I moved on, found a new place, started traveling more, and focused on me for the first time in years. Meanwhile, I heard through mutual friends that she was living in a cheap apartment, struggling to find work, and burning through what little money she had left. And honestly, she earned every second of it. If you like this story, make sure to subscribe. Otherwise, you might just end up like my ex, broke, alone, and full of regret.